following is a presentation of Foosball Radio. It's FoosTalk Live.
You talking to me?
Compelling and lively banter.
Are you going to talk to us?
Talking foosball.
Foosball was how I measured my value as a man. You took that away.
Players and fans, promoters and pros. Unedited and raw.
Talk.
Living in the moment.
We have a lot of important things to talk about.
All while practicing social distancing.
Cool. We'll talk. No big whoop.
Let's get this thing started. FoosTalk Live. Hi, I'm Tom Robinson, and I want to personally thank our Patreon pillars for their support of Foosball Radio. That includes James Sparky Castillo, Craig Topham, Christina Fuchs, Ekaterina Sarbolescu, Carl Fleischer, Jay Teal, David Kalla, Brian Schmid, Cameron Burrows, Mike Green, Jimmy Love, Dwayne Stewart, Judy Schober, Jamie Kunst, Rob Cutler, Reed Rector, Clay Toomey, Adam Gilson, and our friends from the 716 Buffalo Foosball Club. Thank you. Your support brings continued and expanding content from Foosball Radio as we cover the greatest sport on earth. Visit patreon.com/Foosball Radio to find out how to become a Foosball Radio patron. Learn more about the exclusive benefits we offer you. FoosTalk Live is brought to you by Original Leonhardt. The Leonhardt Tournament Model is the most popular foosball table at the ITSF World Cup. Designed and handcrafted in Germany. Order online and have it delivered to your door. Visit www.original-leonhardt-usa.com and use promo code FoosTalk to save 10% off your purchase price. Yep, it's episode 156 of FoosTalk Live. Hey there, it's Tom Robinson, and I believe he's now fully recovered from his amazing weekend last weekend in Las Vegas at the Hall of Fame Classic. Looking forward to the beginning of the butt smoking season, and always willing to talk to someone, anyone, about foosball. That would be Adam Gilson. Hello, Adam.
Tom, I think that one day that the censors are going to come for you for it's barbecue. I'm barbecuing. Barbecuing. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm barbecuing.
But
so
I think butt smoking sounds more romantic, don't you?
Jeez.
Well.
So, anyways, speaking of Vegas, that's where I was last weekend, and it was the Hall of Fame, and that was one heck of a time, as it always is. Got to sit in with Jim Stevens for a whole lot of amazing matches. A lot of what would you call it? Like, what do you call that when something changes everything?
Oh, you mean a pivotal moment?
Pivotal moment in foosball.
Yeah.
Lin Tran winning. A lady player out of Germany comes, never played here, at least that I know of in Vegas, and wins pro singles against a stacked field.
Yeah, really good players.
Amazing, but there was a lot of other awesome things too. We saw Hannah Smith placing in the top 10 in open doubles with her partner, and she did one other thing that I forgot and I meant to mention, but I'll bring it up when I remember. But it's just amazing to see how foosball continues to evolve and change. And you look like you're about to say something.
I was going to say it was Hannah and Todd Lafredo taking designated.
They won designated. Yeah.
I mean, wow. Please.
Yeah. So before we get going on anything else, I've got to thank all the people in Twitch that are joining us tonight to be chatting with we will get to Cal Rogers here very soon. Very excited to talk about him, but we have a lot to cover before we even get to that. But I mean, I'm seeing Capano 21. That's my pops there saying hello. Hard as I can, Dan, who I got to meet in Vegas. It's so fun, Tom, to see all these people that we talk to on Twitch and that I broadcast with when I'm doing, working with Modern Foosball and Foosball Sports Network when I'm not sick.
So bring me up to speed here. What kind of conversations were you having in person?
What we generally do is that we split a warm beer and then grunt. It's high end stuff, Tom. You know me.
Well, okay. Just because it's the Hall of Fame Classic doesn't mean you have to behave yourself.
Right.
Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes. Hard as I can. You're asking why there was no Twitch stream in Vegas. That's something that you would have to ask the Inside Foos folks. That's not.
Okay.
I'm a freelance foosball personality. I show up and spread light and joy. I have no. no skin
Well,
in that,
like I said before, you'll speak to anybody about foosball. I mean, anybody.
even if they don't want to talk about it.
Right.
You know
Right.
me. But
That
yeah,
poor
yeah.
guy
So
at the bus stop.
whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, so Vegas was Vegas, and you couldn't, and it was the Hall of Fame, and you got to see two deserving players, Gina Cruz and Scotty Weidman, finally get inducted. Phenomenal
Yes.
careers. So, Florida Man is a freelance foosball personality. Good to hear.
Yeah.
You are freelance. I'll tell you that. Everything you've ever told me. That guy gets into some deep conversations. It's pretty amazing.
Oh, really? Was it esoteric? Was it more than just your conventional, "Hey, how you doing?"
Dude, if we're gonna start using big words, then I'll just say it was superlative and move on.
Sup I love it. I
I do
love it.
too.
Wow. No, I was so jealous, just watching the matches. Of course, and the weekend didn't go without any controversy. We had a little bit of, something going on with, Tony Sprademan and Rob Morris as they were playing against Brandon Munoz and his partner, Terry Rowe. So, a little of that going on. I mean, it really kinda spiced up the weekend, I think. But generally speaking, seemed like a really smooth tournament.
It was. And they had less tables than they expected because they weren't
Mhm.
expecting that many players. There was a boatload of players. Um,
Wow.
well, and it'll be interesting to see because we're still coming off, I think, kind of a rebuilding or growing from after the COVID shutdowns and everything. And I think that'll be a fun thing to
Yeah.
talk to Cal about actually, because when we say it was near 500 players, they had 50
Yeah.
tables,
That's,
and
astounding.
it is, and I'm gonna love to hear the contrast and talk about the differences between what we have now and what it was back then. Obviously, the landscape's different. Everything's different. It's not fair to say that
Oh,
there's
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's not apples and oranges, but it is apples and applesauce. So I think it's something that we should.
Sure.
It was
Oh,
hard as I can. Dan says it was a great weekend, and it surely was a great weekend. It
yeah,
was.
no
I mean,
question.
it was. There was a level of energy there, and it started a tour kickoff for me. The IFP tour uh,
Right, in Kentucky,
in
yeah.
Kentucky. The energy was there. There was a lot of people there. Again, more people than expected. So I think things are definitely on their way and looking pretty good, Tom.
Oh, anybody who says that foosball is dead is just not looking. They're just not paying attention. So, it's I think now we've proved that's a misnomer,
I see.
and,
Yeah,
it's is alive and well.
yeah, it's moving along. And we talk, especially on our Tuesday night podcast, broadcast Foos Week, when we get to talk to the promoters. The week
Yep.
before tournaments, of course, this coming Tuesday, Rob Cadle of RK Productions is going to be on talking about the tournament, the
Mhm.
Masters Championships this weekend. We'll talk about that more in a minute. Shout out to first time chat Rosario Gilson, who I know, and that's my mom, Heidi Ho from the Great Northwest. Yes, she's up there in Portland again, or south of
Hey,
Portland.
mom
Hey, mom
and dad.
and dad. It's nice. It's good to be here with my folks and all people. Anyways, Tom,
Yeah.
I feel like I interrupted you. Sorry.
No, no, you're perfectly fine. Incidentally, I know because Jim is not with us this evening, and we're going to go a little off track, as Jim would say.
Hmm.
But we're not going to do the IP of the week. I know that's disappointing, but I just wanted to share with you that I am going with a nice Pinot Noir, a Sonoma
Whoa!
Coast. Yeah,
Wow!
yeah, it's a nice vintage. It's I think a 2019 out of Iconis Vineyards. But cheers. I was hoping you had something to.
Oh,
Was it
you want to
water tonight?
cheers? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh huh. I have
Here's to it.
yeah, my classic from the vineyards of La Smirnoff. Uh, let's down the hatch over the gums and look out stomach. Here it comes.
Cheers. Mhm. It's somehow better without the sound effects, don't you think?
I have no idea. I have no opinions of which I'm aware of.
Well, at any rate, we are going to be talking to the great Cal Rogers, a Hall of Famer who, by the way, goes all the way back to the 70s when it comes to foosball. He was one of the architects of the modern foosball tournament. This weekend, incidentally, is the 50th anniversary of the first $250,000 tournament
Sure.
of all time. So, tour, I should
Sure.
say.
Yeah.
So it's that's pretty astounding. That's a pretty special thing. But Cal Rogers is with us, and we're going to be chatting with him in just a few moments. First, though, we want to reflect, as we always do, about the past.
With great moments in foosball history, this is a Foos Talk Live.
Adrian Zamora. Tried to stroke that long. Lafredo raced him out there with a two-rod, made the block and the takeaway. Adrian waited a little bit too long.
And Lafredo banks it off the outside wall. It's Masters Singles Championship point for Todd Lafredo. A great performance by Lafredo defensively and offensively. He's 1 point away from becoming the first ever three-time winner of the Masters Singles, and he gets it. Blocking the pass, stroking home that rolling pull kick. What a performance from Todd Lafredo. He has won 3 green jackets. And that's going to wrap it up from Minneapolis, Minnesota, the beautiful Hyatt Regency Hotel. For the entire Inside Food staff, Christina Bukes, Ezekiel Iceman Moore, Tom Yore, I'm Jim Stevens, and we'll see you foos.
Listen in next time for another great moment in foosball history. It's Foos Talk Live.
It was the year 2003 when Todd Lafredo got his third green jacket as he took on Adrian Zamora from California. That was a pretty intense match and through the entire thing. Just Todd was just so difficult to handle for most foosers.
Yeah, Tom, that's a great flashback. I like that. The Masters, of course, hallowed
Yes.
ground in foosball, and we'll be talking about that in a moment. I think why you brought that up because of this coming weekend, but I think that it needs to speak to that was his third jacket win there against the great Adrian Zamora. What that really speaks to is a reflection of that top 25 greatest male single players list that we did earlier
Yes, it does.
late last year. Does Todd need to be higher? Probably winning stuff like that. He
Man.
didn't crack the top 10, but you still think I still hold on to the concept of iconic. I don't think Todd was as influential in singles as the top 10 players, but
Well,
again, it bears looking
I'm
at. It bears
I
looking
don't
at.
know. We could go on about that for quite some time because just watching that final match with Adrian Zamora, he really did. It was uncanny how he was dominating. And Adrian is a great player. I mean, really, really top notch. And yet it just seemed like Todd was just doing his thing, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's Todd,
just
and
yeah,
and maybe Todd is somebody that Cal can speak to actually, because
yeah.
Todd has been around. But
Long time.
but the transition, this lovely segue that you're doing there is the Masters Championship this weekend. I'm not sure if it's in the same, and that's formerly Florida State, and I'm not sure if it's in the same vein as the concept of the Masters as it was around, but it doesn't really matter because we
Yeah.
still have that kind of provenance there in Florida. Florida, of course, is the powerhouse of I think the powerhouse state of foosball right now.
Mhm.
I'm sure every state might throw in an argument, but across the board, Florida from region to region to region is doing quite a lot.
Oh, and
And
they're the home for most of the Masters these
right,
days, right? So,
right, and that's what we see, and that's what we're going to look at here this weekend. Because I'm going to be there with Inside Foods. I'll be
yep.
at the call at the broadcast. It'll be me, not Jim. Or Jim won't be there that weekend, but I'll be there, and I'll be bringing in guest co-hosts and whatnot with me.
Yeah.
One of which is going to be
Rotation.
right, and but the big
Yeah.
thing that we can take away from this tournament that's coming up this weekend is they have finally started a Florida State Hall of Fame, which is long
Yes.
overdue, and the class the inaugural class that's going to be inducted this weekend is going to be Mike Green, Jim Dumas, and Johnny Horton,
Wow.
which is
There's-
a
That's pretty amazing.
fearsome trio to be sure. You can
Yeah.
make arguments that there should be others. Maybe there will. I mean, obviously there will be. I mean, that's the whole point of a Hall of Fame is that it happens on a yearly basis. So there will be more. But I mean, if you're going to start somewhere, that's not a bad place to start. And
Yeah.
and I think everybody that needs to will eventually be honored. So I don't I don't know. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it immensely.
Yeah, clearly. This is, like everything else, you got to start someplace. And if the Masters turns into a really great event in Florida, because it's the home of so many great players, that only makes sense. So, and it's kind of a cool place to hang out in, this time of the year.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
Nice
it's
weather
not.
and
Uh-uh.
not far from the beach.
Are you
So,
being ironic?
oh no.
Cool. There's nothing cool about Florida ever.
Well, it is a little steamy. I'll give you that. Not as steamy as Costa Rica, however, but
No, you're
it's
being
still
very,
steamy.
very ambassadorial. Florida Man Rules says not a valid argument. What's not a valid argument? The Todd thing, the Florida Powerhouse thing, or the Gouda grapes with that wine thing? You get back to us, buddy. And
Gouda
how about
with the grapes. I'm
uh,
down for that, by
yeah,
the way. Some Gouda with my grapes for sure.
Gouda with your grapes? But wait, no, Gouda grapes with the wine. I think was what he was saying.
Here's to Florida man.
Yeah, but Tom, I think now is better. No time like the present to bring
Oh,
in
no
our
question. Yeah. Well, this is truly an honor because, of course, when it comes to Hall of Famers and the people we've been chatting with of late, certainly they all have a significance, and of course, you have to in order to make the Hall of Fame. But he was in one of the first classes of the Hall of Fame back in 2012,
Well,
and
wait a
reason
minute.
being,
2012. So it was in '86 was the first class.
oh, the first class.
Yeah, the
Sorry,
first
yeah,
first class, and then it started up
gotcha.
again in the '90s. But then he was finally inducted in 2012.
In
Was
2012,
it
yeah.
was that what you? Because
Well, it was early. Let's put it that way.
I'm gonna
One of
double
the
check.
earlier classes. Yeah, it's 2012. Pretty sure. But I'm sure you can clarify that for us. But it's at any rate, if we go back to the 1970s, as foosball was really kicking butt. I mean, there was this golden age we all talk about, and so tonight our Hall of Famer is Cal Rogers. Cal, thank you for joining us on Foosball Radio
You
and
bet.
Foos Talk Live.
Glad to be
Cal,
here.
so Cal, I mean, this the history that we could talk about. It probably takes several weeks to cover everything you experienced back in those days. Correct?
I would think so, yes.
Yeah. So, and by the way, are you going to be writing the book anytime soon?
I am not.
No.
I'm not.
I don't blame you.
But Cal, your very first experience in foosball, we had talked before the show, and I know that you served in our armed forces in the Army. Thank you for your service. Um,
Sure.
as soon as you got out of the service, how did you dive into the foosball scene?
Well, I came back to Dallas. I'd been stationed in Italy
Hmm.
and played football over there. I came back to Dallas, and I was actually planning on a different career, but I ended up getting involved with Bob Hayes and Bob Furr in building the first Tornado first football table.
Oh,
We built that X001, and then we built a series of 5 and then another series of 10, kind of improved it along the way. So I had a route in Dallas, and we did the foosball thing with Tornado. So that
mm.
was my first involvement with the business of foosball. Was that?
So technically speaking, Tornado really was one of the first American tables. Would that be correct?
It was the first, I think.
Okay, got it. No, I really wasn't aware that Tornado was that early. So now you mentioned earlier in the pre-show that you had the very first foosball table at home. Was that correct?
Well, it was a route. It was a coin operated version, but we took X001 off the route because we
Hmm.
had the new models out, and I had it in my house for a long time.
Wow.
And then I unfortunately loaned it to some people for a party. And when I went back the next day, the house was empty. They were gone and the table was gone. So
Whoa.
X001 went away.
What happened? You got to wonder that if we could ever do some detective work and find out where that ended up,
Yeah, it'd be nice.
wouldn't it? So Cal, what happened next? You got involved with Tornado, and then what?
Well, Tornado had a marketing plan that was basically never giving up ownership of the table, having
Mm,
distributors operate the games at locations around. And we established, I think, 16 or 17 distributorships around San Antonio, all around.
wow.
And then Dynamo came out with their table, which was a knockoff of our table, the Tornado
Hmm.
table, and they were going to just sell it to the business, to the coin operated business, and I recognized that was going to be a big problem for Tornado, so I went to Bob and Bill and tried to buy a Tornado from them, so we could start actually selling the table, and
Hmm.
they wouldn't do it. So I had an interest in the company. I sold my interest in the company, and I went on my own, and that's when I met John Gilliland, who you probably have heard of,
Hmm.
Hmm.
and we formed Foos News Magazine and the World Table Soccer Association, um, and we got that going. I stayed silent in that because I was involved with other businesses. So, but we got those going, and I started working with the American Table, which was a table that was made in Dallas, promoting the American Table.
Hmm.
So hold on. Let's that was all bunch. You got out of the army. You got out of the, I mean, let's put some timestamps on this. You got out of the army and you started working with Bob Furr with Tornado. What year was that ish? What range?
71,
71. And then Dynamo came out.
73, 2 or 3.
Dynamo was a Tornado knockoff.
It was. Yeah, I mean, it was such a knockoff that they the name even was kind of a knockoff. Tornado was named after the Dallas soccer team.
Oh, really?
It was in a North American Soccer League team, Tornado. We used their logo at first. They eventually changed it and put a D on it and took the D off and made it just Tornado. But we used their logo. We used some of their players as distributors.
Cool.
Ron Newman, who was the coach of the Tornado, was a distributor for our.
So that was sorry. Go ahead.
And then Dynamo is named after the Dynamo Soccer Club of Russia, or USSR, which came and played a match against Dallas at the Cotton Bowl about the time their game came out.
Wow.
Huh.
So they named theirs Dynamo and Tornado.
Wait, so the rivalry between Tornado and Dynamo echoes the rivalry like between Rocky and the Rocky movies against the Russians. Is that?
I guess
that sounds pretty
there you go.
fair. Okay, This is wild. I had no idea any of this. So Dynamo was a Russian, well at the time USSR soccer team, and they used that name as competition, right, against Tornado, which was
no, they were a Russian. They were a Russian team.
Russian team,
and they traveled over here to play a big match against the Dallas Tornado at the Cotton Bowl. It's the first sellout of the Cotton Bowl for soccer ever, I think.
And this was 72-ish, 70.
72, 72, 73, something like that.
And who was in charge of Dynamo? Who started that?
Can't remember their names. John Lewis, and another fellow.
Okay, all right.
And they were excellent businessmen. They really knew what they were doing.
So you've got this 3-4 year period. Then you went to the American table. That was the name of it. You haven't even touched tournament soccer yet, or even involved with Lee Peppard yet at this point.
Right.
so I want to just say this so people know. You've said the word distributor like maybe 5-6 times so far in this very short time we've been chatting with you. A lot of people don't know how it worked back then. The distribution and tables. Could you tell us like the chain of distribution and how the table promotions worked?
Sure. Tornado started off with every operator of machines was like a franchise, but it wasn't called a franchise because it had all sorts of requirements. They were just operating the table on their own. And we sold the tables from Dallas to them, but we kept a percentage of everything that they took in on the machine.
Gotcha.
So they were not just operating. Now they would go into a bar and put the machine in, give 50% to the bar, and 50% they'd take home. And that was causing a big problem with the jukebox operators and the pinball machine guys because they had a coin-operated machine in their building, and a lot of times the jukebox operator had loaned the place a lot of money, that sort of thing, and they didn't like it. So when Dynamo came with a table that they would sell to the actual coin-operated companies, it put a lot of pressure on Tornado. Tornado was because in some cases we'd have businesses where the bar would give 50% to us and they'd give 50% to their coin-operated, the jukebox guy, just to have the table in there.
Really? Huh.
So when you offered them, when Dynamo came in, I just knew it was going to be a problem. And so I tried to buy the company from Furr and Hayes, tried to buy them out, and it just didn't fly. So I sold out and left because I could see they were headed into a black hole.
Sure.
And with American Table, I was with them just for a short period of time, and I just did promotions for them. I went on the road. I had a van with Mike McDougall, and we had a big van all painted up, and we went around the Southeast doing promotions for the American Table. And our tour went all through the South, Atlanta, Raleigh, back across Tennessee, and we ultimately ended up in Denver at the 50,000.
That was 50,000. What year was that? 74? A $50,000 tournament in 74?
Yeah, the $50,000 tournament in 74.
Wow.
We ended up there. with the American table, and John was there. John Gilliland was there representing WTSA and Foos News Magazine. And what we'd do is every night after the competition, they had a hospitality suite, and we'd go meet, and I'd talk with Peppard about what I thought should be done with the sport to develop it. And he offered me ownership in tournament soccer if I would come do that.
Cool. What was your pitch?
Well, I just felt what you ended up with. I felt like if you ran small tournaments around the country that you could use as a focal point, that then you build leagues around that and local tournaments around that you could just, kind of grassroots it out till you had a nice sales, a lot of sales. And if you take video games out of it, it probably still would be going.
Right.
But he invited John Gilliland and me to come to Seattle, where we were working together on taking some ownership of tournament soccer. And John decided he didn't want to live in Seattle and was going to move back to Dallas. So he took WTSA and Foos News, went back to Dallas, and took Karen Von Otterstedt with him.
Karen eventually becomes Karen Gilliland, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I have one quick question, Tom. I know you got questions, but I just want to get just what you said. Again, there's a lot of history, but I think we can fill in blanks. We talk about a lot of these different things on the show, the different things we're talking about, but I want to talk about the '74 Denver tournament, the Elitch Gardens tournament. That's considered the first World Championships in the United States. You were there.
Yeah.
But you weren't with tournament soccer yet.
No, I wasn't.
That was
change. I was actually sort of the unofficial representative of the Texas contingent.
Okay.
And Texas had the largest number of players there other than the Northwest.
Oh.
Okay, so could you paint the scene of that tournament for us?
It was crazy. It was poorly organized, poorly run, played all night. It was just kind of eventually it had to end, and it did.
Eventually.
Do you remember how many events and how many players?
I don't exactly, but there were nice size, good crowd, good number of events. But there weren't as many events as we ultimately ended up with as we went forward. But there were a number of events, and the rules were a little different, and the table was very different.
Could you fill in those blanks for us? It was tournament soccer,
okay,
but it was different, right?
Well, they had springs instead of cushions.
Oh, good Lord!
Okay,
and spinning was allowed.
Really?
So when somebody got way behind, they just start spinning it. Sometimes they'd make it, sometimes they wouldn't. It was a great, brave episode to run that tournament.
Yeah,
sure.
They had a lot to learn. They didn't have people they'd call a match and give them a card and tell them to go play it and turn the card in. After they played, they'd hang on to the card because they were tired, they wanted a little rest, so they wouldn't turn in their victory.
Oh, that kind of held things up a bit.
Yeah, some things remain the same, Cal. that still happens. But sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say we put together a system on the tour, $250,000 tour, that's kept that from happening.
Okay, I want to hear that. But just one other quick question. So was Elitch Gardens, was that the biggest money tournament event up until that point?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
50 grand.
50,000.
Yeah. And the other quick question, I heard that there was no time limits on the rods of possession at that tournament.
That's right.
No time limit.
No time, and they had to have. Texas was doing the pull shot.
Right.
Gary File and his
Phantom File.
He was doing a pull shot, and it would take him forever to get it set up. And then somebody would bang a rod, and it would roll. But he never faltered. He would not shoot until he had it set up.
Wow!
So, that took a long time. And then everybody was doing similar things. So, the matches ran all night.
That's extraordinary.
Or 4 in the morning.
So I'm curious, when it came to the rating system, the rankings, what was considered top? Was it master then, or was it pro? What
No,
was the top ranking?
no, there was no ranking at all. It was just
None.
show up
None.
and
Whoever wins wins.
yeah, show up and
Wow,
play.
that's extraordinary.
When did?
And
Oh, go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
no,
Go
no, I
ahead.
was just gonna. I'm wondering if you won the finals at the $50,000 tournament in those days, how much money did you walk away with?
I'm not sure. I think it was like 5,000,
Okay,
maybe four, maybe six.
not bad for a weekend in 1974.
Yeah, not bad. That's for a team.
That's extraordinary, man, extraordinary. Adam, I interrupted you. Sorry about that.
That was $2,500 in 1974. Was $15,000 today.
Wow,
Yeah,
Not bad.
wow.
Good work if
not
you can
bad.
get it.
Yeah,
So okay. So that tournament happened, and then you became involved with tournament soccer after that.
right.
What
July
happened?
16th of 74, I moved up to Seattle and made a deal with Pepper to be the executive vice president in charge of promotion. And I started putting together the $250,000 tour.
And what was the? What does that look like? What does that even? What is that?
The $250,000 tour?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, it was, I think, 30 tournaments, 28, 30 tournaments, something like that. And what we did is we spread around the country, and we had put $5,000 tournaments in some towns, 10,000s, and 25,000. And we ultimately had $100,000 in Denver, and $100,000 championship at the end. And every week we'd set up, run, and break down a tournament in a different town around the country. Some real hardworking guys, Ed Anaker and Mark Strand. I don't know, you've probably heard of those
Oh
guys.
yeah.
They were our table build. After a while, we started off. Have you heard of Steve Blatzspieler?
Yes.
Yeah, Steve Blatz and a guy named Kyle Eady and I
Mm-hmm.
started out on the tour. We left Seattle to run in a little mini motorhome,
Wow.
and we went to we left Seattle. I think we went to St. Louis. To Salt Lake City. Anyway, we were, and after about 3 or 4 weeks, we called home office and said, "Look, we got to have some help. It's just,
Mm.
I mean, we would build tables on Wednesday and Thursday, run the tournament on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, tear them down on Monday, and then travel on Tuesday, and then do that after
Wow.
a few weeks, you get tired."
Yeah, that's a grind.
So
So we got Ed and Mark joined us.
so Cal, just to say this, like these stories of these people and Zeke Mullins, that kind of thing, Phantom File, Snyder, those guys, those are the guys that I grew up hearing like bedtime stories
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
This is because, and I've said this before, but my parents met at a foosball tournament at the wherever it was. I'm sure they'll correct me, somewhere in Portland back in the mid '70s, right? So I'm here because of foosball. So I feel indebted to it. So I get like nerded out
Like,
hearing this, right? So but I think, and this is a point that I don't think people know, tournament soccer was the owner of the table, but they weren't the distributor, but they were running
no,
the tournaments.
we had distributors in each town. It's the point off distributors across the country. There are offices in every city, every area of the country where they have distributors. Like Bally has distributors all over the country, and ultimately Atari had distributors all across the country. So Tournament Soccer would sell the tables to St. Louis, and then St. Louis sold it to the operators in that area. That's the way the game was distributed. And that was the concept of the tour. The concept
So
of
like
the
a
tour
middleman.
was to create the demand to get them to buy the tables.
So wait,
That's why we had a blue top and a green top, and that was just because we wanted to make more sales.
Mm.
is that like Coke and classic Coke and then back to Coke again kind of a thing?
I don't know.
I think it was. Wait, okay, so hold on. So tournament soccer, distributor, promoter, local.
Tournament Soccer wasn't a distributor. We
Okay.
sold nationwide.
So what was the hierarchy then beneath tournament soccer? Was it then
All the distributors. Just all the
distributors? And then it would go out to the regional people.
We'd make a deal like if let's say we were going to have a $25,000 tournament in Minneapolis, which was a great market for us. The distributor there would buy the tables that we used in the tournament, and they would then sell them off the floor from the tournament.
Okay.
And people wanted to have them because they could say, this is one of the tournaments that was used in the $25,000 tournament, yada, yada. If we had a $10,000 tournament in San Antonio, same thing. Put them there, sell them to the distributor. So we had new tables waiting for us at every venue for the first year.
That's awesome.
Did you hear what he just said, Tom? Did you hear how he said that? No, did you hear how he said that Minneapolis was a good market for them? Which is, it's so fun to hear this from your perspective, Cal, because we always talk about it generally from the player perspective. And what you just talked about was the whole Nut Goody thing, the Bells and Bednar teams, and all the greatness that came out of that area. But you're talking about the nuts and bolts of what's actually happening behind the scenes of how those tables were even getting there. And it's just so cool. I just love it.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we did, we started fairly early on this, was at tournaments, we didn't call matches by individual names. They had to have a team name.
Oh.
And that was so they could be sponsored by somebody. So they could be by the 7-Eleven team, 7-Eleven team, or the Indianapolis. I can't remember the name of them. They were a big sponsor. Anyway, so everybody, and they would wear uniforms with their name on them. A lot of people didn't take advantage of that. They just called their team, Adam and Tom.
Mm-hmm.
But if they were smart, they'd go in their town and they'd find somebody who would sponsor them and pay their way up there and pay their entry. So when they won, they got to keep all the money and they had the sponsorship. And all the top players had sponsorship.
That makes sense.
Eventually.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I'd like to be on the Target team, by the way, just because.
I'll take Corona or something, whatever.
But that's astounding. And it just seemed like from what you're saying, Cal, that compare that to today where things are so tightly controlled during a match or during not just the rules, but also, during the execution of a tournament. Was that a good thing or a bad thing back in the early days that things were so freewheeling?
Well, they weren't freewheeling. I don't think they were freewheeling in the tournament soccer. When the $250,000 tour and beyond, they were in the $50,000 tournament. But we developed systems on the $250,000 tour to move them right along. I don't know if they still exist today or not.
What were the systems?
Well, the biggest problem we had initially was you'd call a match and we'd write it out on a card. The team playing Team A, team playing Team B, they took the card, put it on their table, and they played their match. And then when they were done, they were to bring it back and say Team A won. So we could put that on the chart, come up with the next match, and call that match. Well, we took it, so we built a little thing we called Pete, and then another thing called Repeat, which probably I don't know if we should talk about how we got that name. But we called them on table 2. We put the card on this thing in front of us, and they went out and played it. And they came back. They took the card down and signed it and turned it in. They didn't have it out there. And if the table was empty and the card was still up there, we knew they were messing with us. So it allowed us to move them right along.
Okay, so there was less opportunity for people to delay play, that kind of thing.
Right. Yep.
Got it. I'm curious, when did it start to happen when you started to see more table rules, like no spinning, you had 15 seconds to shoot, this kind of thing? When did that start to kick in? Do you remember?
That's kind of funny, yeah. After if you look at the $250,000 tour, the Milwaukee tournament, which was in April or May, going into that tournament, I wrote the rules of foosball.
You did?
And I took them up to that tournament and we introduced them there. And we added 20 or 30 rules that hadn't been there. And it was just things that we were doing already. But like people were saying, well, he tries to control the serve to me through that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we set the rules for how that was done. And actually what we did is we made it legal to control the serve. But
Wait. I have to say, so hold on. So I want you to continue with this because this is fascinating. But I just want to make a point for the people that listen now, because you don't know this, Cal. Like there's still a drop hole on the tornado table, but there's not a drop cup like what you're talking about, where you can control the serve and you had to do it a certain way to get it down. But we use the ITSF, for the International Table Soccer Federation rules. You don't drop the ball anymore. You set it in between the middleman on the 5. So there's no drop anymore, which is really a point of contention for a lot of foosball players. But anyways, I just wanted to illustrate that because it's so fascinating to hear the differences that you're talking about and what we have now today. So, sorry, go ahead, Cal. Maybe Cal's upset that we not set the ball. Said I've had enough.
Cal, can you hear us?
Let me check. I see him there. Well, while we wait for him to come back,
It could be just a signal issue too, for sure.
it could be a signal issue. This has been, what are we, 30? Not even 30 minutes into chatting with him. This is a lot.
Yeah, this it's astounding. It's like you're watching the whole thing that we know today being formed. How I guess you could say watching the incubator where this was born.
Hello,
and
hello.
Cal,
Oh,
there you
is.
are.
Cal's back.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
So
Anyway, what I was talking about was the serve, but in the tornado, people had always served to themselves and have a cup on the side. It just a hole, and they would put
Mhm.
their finger there in such a way so they would roll out to their man.
right.
But then when they came to the 50,000, that was no, you can't do that. So about 4 or 5 weeks, or I guess more like 10 weeks into the tour, I finally wrote the rules, and it was about 35 rules or 40 rules, and then we adapted. But it was kind of fun to just introduce those rules to everybody because most of them were already assumed to be done. The main
Sure.
thing was no spinning was the main thing.
No spinning.
And this was 75?
74 or 5.
74.
Mm.
Okay.
Wow. It's so many things that we see now and hear now when it comes to officiating a match. The things that like jarring the table. That
Yeah.
just that by itself is like you can call somebody on a jar. If there's no ref and they don't agree with you, they can there is I guess a moment where you can just say, well, too bad. But I think most foosball players now, especially, are pretty good about that. They'll just say, "Okay, I'm sorry, I missed. I did jar you, and I'll give you the ball." What was it like back in those days? Was there such a thing against jarring?
Oh yeah, it was against jarring, and the table was a little flimsier in the beginning stages, and
Mm.
scarring. It was a little more frequent. You just had to kind of play through it until we passed the rules. Um, I guess the spinning was the main thing that we wanted to eliminate
Right.
because it was just they just go crazy with the spinning.
I can't imagine that. It seems like such a especially at a professional tournament to watch something like that would be amazing.
Yeah, you get down 4-0, you start spinning.
So, I mean, so it just seems so ridiculous to me to do that, though, because, like, I mean, I get it. You hit the panic button, right? But, like, that really, the image of that just doesn't look great. So,
No, and you take a guy like Gary File and you spin on him, you're going to lose because he's just going to pass through your spinner, take
Yeah.
the ball, set it up, and score.
Mm-hmm.
and we talk about Gary File on the show a lot, and he is I think top 5, top 10, easily top 5 most influential players on the game as it is today because of that passing series that he was instrumental. I mean, he was just like the first, right? Like, and did you know him? Like, did you?
Oh yeah,
hang
yeah, I
with
knew
him?
Gary. Oh yeah, I knew him really well, and he came to a lot of tournaments that we ran, like in Atlanta. He was there. I'll tell you a funny story. Lori Schranz, you've heard of her.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
She's a little bitty lady,
Mhm.
and Gary's fairly bulky guy. We were on an elevator riding down to the tournament on Friday evening practice, and Gary and Lori got on, and then 2 young fellows got on the elevator, and they said, "Are you guys going to the foosball tournament?" We said, "Oh yeah, we're going." He said, "We're going to go too, and we're going to win because we've never been beaten.
Oh,
And Lori's friend,
really?
Lori's friends looks at Gary, and Gary says, "Would you like to play a little money game with us before it gets started?" And they didn't even make it to the tournament.
Right.
No.
They had to go sell their car. That's I love that. That's
awesome.
It's funny. You don't get that as much now today. In fact, I don't think you get it nearly at all today because of the social media and everybody knows everybody nowadays. You
Yeah.
can't really shark somebody. So that was from 74 moving into 75, $250,000 tour, and then you start ramping things up.
Right. Well, we did a $375,000 tour.
Oof.
And we did a $500,000 tour. And then we figured out if we rolled kind of like they do golf, where you start in September and not in until the next year, that we could put together $1 million tour.
Wow.
And we put together $1 million tour.
So before we get to the $1 million tour, so you've outlined what the 250 grander tour is that it's a bunch of smaller tournaments that you were putting together and running in regional events, and a couple large ones. And you said there was 200 granders in the $250,000 tour.
There was 100 grander in September in Denver, and there were 5s, 10s, and 25s that we spread around one a week. We went to the town, ran those tournaments, that sort of thing. It's kind of funny the way the $250,000 tour came from. We had meetings about how much we could do, and we decided on $300,000 is how much prize money we were going to give out. And I was sitting there one day and I thought, what sounds like more money to you, 300,000 or $250,000?
Yeah,
and everybody agreed. $250,000.
Yeah, I love
that.
We
say $50,000 right there.
Yeah, I know people get upset when I offer them a third of a pound of a burger, they want a quarter pounder. And I'm like, get out of my house! Don't do that to me. But
I love it.
So okay, because I just want to get the timeline. So 74-ish is the beginning of the $250,000. Then you do the 350. That's 75-ish.
375, yeah.
And that's in 1975.
76, I think.
76. So what? And I'm just curious. So we now have what modern foosball players know. Our majors, our big tournaments right now are we've got a Hall of Fame Classic that happens in Las Vegas, and we have the World Championships that happens in Kentucky. There's a Nationals, and then 2 state tournaments, Colorado State and Texas State. Those are the majors because there's a threshold of how many players show up and how far away they're coming, basically, for lack of it. I'll simplify it, right? And then you have regional events like the one that I'm going to this weekend. I think it's fixing to become a major, but the Florida tournament right now has been 15 grander or so. Did you all, as you were doing, because what you're talking about is this is like branding. You guys are branding this tournament soccer thing, right? And were you having different names for different tournaments, or was it just like, this is your Utah tournament, this is your this, and then you have nationals?
We had no sponsors of the $250,000 tour, no sponsor of individual events when we put it together, because we had to put it together at the end of 74, and put all and build the poster and get the poster out there. So we didn't have any sponsors for the tournaments. People didn't even know what a foosball tournament was. So we started just running them ourselves, and that was the whole idea, was to create sales at the table, and that's what it did. But then as time went on, we picked up sponsors. We picked up Slits for a while. We'd go into various towns and have somebody sponsor there. And sponsors started, not necessarily of the event, but parts of the event, that sort of thing. And then, we had the super singles and super doubles where we gave away cars and trucks and
Porsches.
All that.
So I want to talk about that individually by itself. But before we get to there, we have a Dan on here on our Twitch, as I was telling you, is asking, were all the events that you guys were running profitable for you guys? I'm assuming.
None of them were.
None of them.
Were they promotional devices?
They weren't designed to be profitable. They were a marketing expense.
Oh.
Across the board, every single tournament?
Well, we occasionally have a tournament where we'd have a lot of folks, but like in Denver that first year, we had so much I mean, it really created a lot of interest, and there were so many people there that we raised the prize money to $120,000 at the event itself.
At the event.
Because we had so many people there and so many people wanted to be a part of it. So instead of taking that 20,000 as profit from the event, we gave it in prize money.
Wow.
So they had a $20,000 purse at that first tournament.
So your
So
game.
the
Go ahead.
sorry,
Go ahead.
the $250,000 tour was actually 270,000 or so.
So tournament soccer's success, and it's our memory and our knowledge of it as that golden age. A lot of it, obviously, there was a competition, but it came from you all were promoting table sales through tournaments,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and that was it.
That was it. That was the sole reason for the tour.
Wow.
And that's the reason why we went to a blue top. And that's the reason why we,
Because you got to buy the next thing. Oh, you
But you had to-
guys were like Apple with your Apple iPhone 1 and then 2 and then 3. I'm going to keep coming up with as many different. That's
we
so,
taught Apple. That
you taught
too.
Apple. Steve Jobs should. Yeah. Well, he's not here anymore. But anyways, you don't need. Oh, this is so amazing, Cal. I had no idea this was. I didn't know this. So okay. So all right. So I'm seeing the evolution from the $250,000 to the 350 grander, and then you talked about the super singles and super doubles. Was that
Right.
promotional as well, or what? Because you had Porsches there. You had all kinds of stuff going on there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Were those donated? Or how did
No, we bought them.
Wow.
We had the super doubles had. Can't remember what first place was, but we had two vans.
It was a boatload.
Excuse me.
It was a lot.
Yeah. Anyways, there were first, second, and third place for all cars.
Really?
God.
God.
And it was double, so there were two of this one, two of this one, two of that one, and then I think we gave 2 foosball tables to fourth place.
Wow.
And super singles, there was just the Porsche, and then it was money after that.
So how many places did you pay out? Because now we see, some tournaments they pay out to fifth place or sixth place. How many places did you pay out?
It's hard to remember that exactly, but a lot of, in a $5,000 tournament, there's not a lot of money to split.
Right.
But we had a sort of trying to decide the best approach would be to give a big first place or give more places. That's sort of the quandary.
Okay.
And
Right.
we were trying to support the guys that were traveling, and playing. So we made first place a little lower than you might think it would be, so that we could play deeper, so more people could afford to keep traveling.
That's fair.
This is
Yeah.
a point of contention now in foosball as promoters as it stands now, because there's 2 different schools of thought. One is that because now, and I know we're going to get to this because we're talking about the history of tournament soccer, and it comes to the modern day evolution where we are right now, because you didn't have rookie, pro, amateur, semi-pro, beginner events. It was open and maybe a couple specialty events, right?
We eventually had a novice
You did.
class.
But the mindset now is that you have generally about 6 or 7 ranks, and sometimes at these tournaments, the lower ranks, the beginner ranks, win a foosball table, which is as much retail wise as, say, first place in open is winning.
Right.
And-
But it's not as much wholesale.
Right.
You
Not
know,
as
that
much
costs-
wholesale.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So, but the people take objection to that, and it's an interesting thing. Like, do you reward the newer players by giving them more money, or do you try to invite more players by having them work up to a higher goal? I don't know if anybody has an answer to that, but it sounds like
So
you were kind of. Sorry, go ahead.
If you look at the prize money during that time, there were 10 or 12 guys that were making good money,
Mm-hmm.
Guys and girls on tour. And then there was another 50 or more that were doing all right, keeping themselves alive on the road and such. So, and then, some tournaments drew people from just the immediate area. Some tournaments drew people from the whole country. So the size of the tournament would determine pretty much how much your reach was. Like you couldn't get Gary File to go play in Seattle for 5,000. That's
Right.
just not enough money to justify the trip and everything. And we knew they had to justify the trip in order to go.
So at the peak of the TS tour, how many people, by your estimation, were actually being able to, let's say, make a living or live off of touring? What was it, 10, 20 players?
So I'd say something like that.
Okay.
Uh, and the numbers have changed dramatically since then. 5,000 is now what, 30,000 worth. I mean, it's
Yeah.
5,000 was significant money at that time,
It was.
even
Mhm.
though now it sounds like it's nothing. Um, but we had probably 10 or 20 guys they'd be almost everywhere, and you could count on them to win, make money.
Yeah.
So you had so table sales was what was driving everything. It wasn't, you weren't at a profit at these tournaments.
Never.
But the table sales weren't just happening at the tournaments, right? There is another
Yep.
story here, right? Like there was promo teams spreading throughout the country.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I know my dad was on one of those.
Yep. And he was great.
Him and Joe Snyder and
What a
Larry
team.
Folk, Jack Graham. If you remember Jack Graham,
Oh, Jack was the greatest.
he's my godfather. He passed away unfortunately a couple of years ago, but
He
he's
painted a car I had. I had a car, and he said he wanted to paint it for me. It took him 6 weeks to paint it. He was such a wild man.
nobody knows. I mean, like nobody understands the level of focus that guy could operate at.
Oh man.
It could cut through solid metal. It was amazing.
Yep.
But
He's one of the neatest guys. Unfortunately, he was near Seattle, where our office was. He was near there, and we got to see him fairly often. But yeah, Terry Gilson and Joe Snyder, they were a great promo team because of great personality. Joe Snyder's just,
I've never met him. He passed away before I was ever alive, I think. But I can in my head imagine his laughter, shooting banks based on just a vivid my mom would tell. But so what was the promo team? What was the concept behind that? What were they doing?
I'll tell you, the other good team we had was Larry Folk and Marcio Bonilla.
Yeah,
they were a great team. The concept.
Cal, I'm sorry, I want to hear the concept, but there was a big tournament down in Costa Rica a few months ago, and Marcio was there. Just kicking around down there. He's living down there now. It's great to see him.
Marcio was so much fun. We had him up in Alaska doing a promo.
Oh wow!
And he called one day and said, "I can't go out today. It's too cold." I said, "Well, how cold is it, Marcio?" He says, "It's 20 below zero." I said, "Well, you just got to bundle up and go." Yeah. He said, "Well, I would, but it's raining." I said, "Marcio, you might want to think about that for a minute."
20 below Celsius or 20 below Fahrenheit?
That doesn't matter.
And rain is. Yeah.
So
Marcio was.
Go ahead, Cal.
The concept was we put two of them in a van, all painted up van, and a foosball table. And they would go to a distributor and they would go around town playing matches and just promoting foosball. They'd go into a bar. If they had a tournament soccer table, they'd go and play through the evening with the people, talk with them, and tell them about the tour. If they didn't have a tournament soccer, they would bring theirs in, set it up, and then play people. And I don't know where we got that idea. I had done a similar thing back in 72, when we traveled for the American team around, and it just seemed like a great way to introduce.
It's a great idea.
And we had several teams, and when we went to Europe, they went to Europe and did them over there as well.
Because as my dad told me, what they would do is they would go to all these different places and locations, bars, colleges, wherever, pull the table out, do the razzle dazzle, show what's going on, and then be like, "Oh, by the way," then they point at the van that had $1 Million Tour on it.
Right.
They'd be like, "If you want to participate in this, call so and so to get a table."
Yep.
And that was all part of it.
But he wasn't, like when Terry did that, he was helping the local distributor sell the game. Mm-hmm. That person would call the local distributor and buy the game from him. We didn't sell any games out of Seattle.
Okay. So you continue. We've got the promoters out there doing this, making all this, or the promo teams out there selling tables. The regional events, you are operating these at losses because you're making money on the tables, and then you're looking at the books and you realize if you start the tour at a different date, you can then just have what is the gold standard for everything foosball and the history of all foosers that play foosball now. Look back and see the $1 Million Tour. Someone has a poster on their wall. You see it on all the Facebook chats. The $1 Million Tour, which is huge, and it's like the apex of foosball in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
Walk us through that.
Through what part of that?
Just the $1 Million Tour. I mean, we know how it came up to, but like, what was the inception? You finally said, let's do $1 million. Like, where did it come from?
Yeah.
How did it run?
Every year we knew we had to raise it up. That's why we went from 250 to 375, 500, and then ultimately $1 million. And we had a $250,000 final tournament, $250,000 final tournament in St. Louis.
In 77?
I think so. I'm not sure. 77 or 8. And that $250,000 tournament, we had 220 tables set up in the convention center. And we had 4,740 entrants play in the tournament. Now,
how many?
4,740.
4,000.
I'll never forget that number.
You heard that. Wow.
Wait, before you continue, I want everybody to understand this. In 1977 dollars, in today dollars, $250,000 in today dollars is $1.2 million. Could you imagine any of you out there seeing a tournament that goes up? And that's not, I'm not knocking local, I'm not knocking promoters right now or anybody that runs anything, because we're talking about two different eras. But a $1.2 million tournament is ridiculous. Wow.
Yeah.
So you had that.
Well, 250 was pretty amazing. We were bigger than women's golf at the time.
Wow.
Wow.
And, we talked about, did we make any money? We had the entry fees, obviously, but we charged a quarter to play in every tournament. Every tournament we ran.
Every game.
When you needed the balls, you had to put in a quarter.
Oh.
That was a big part of our revenue.
That makes sense, though.
And I think at the $250,000 tournament, it might have been 50 cent foos, but it might have been a quarter. I can't remember.
Wow.
But even in the finals, that was one of Pepper's goals, was to have a guy just before he plays, while he's playing for a $250,000 tournament grand prize, to put a quarter in the machine to get the balls out. He wanted that visual.
Why?
Because it sells tables.
Yeah.
Oh my!
I'm curious, Cal, whose job was it at the end of a tournament to empty those tables and carry out the quarters? That's what I want to know.
Well, we did it several times, usually during the course of a tournament. But
got it. Okay.
On Sunday night, when it was over, the crew, whoever we were, would go in, collect all the quarters, and we have to go to a bank the next morning and make a deposit to ship back to Seattle for the checks that we'd passed out.
Wow.
I'll tell you another thing that's kind of funny, I think, anyway. We had special checks made, $250,000 tour checks. They were really pretty. I'm sure Terry's seen them.
Mm-hmm.
Gold embossed, beautiful. And we gave those as prizes in the hopes that people would choose to frame it instead of cash it.
Interesting.
And a lot of people did.
Huh.
You get a check for $30 or $20, you might keep that beautiful check.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, you guys really thought about this. There's so much more to this than I mean, obviously today's tournaments, it's a different era, a different time. But you guys obviously were innovators. You were doing taking a lot of chances, but also doing things that worked. When did you realize, as you were going through this process, that hey, we're onto something here?
Well, I think on the $250,000 tour, we knew we were onto something, because we'd roll into town. And when we rolled into town, it was Steve Blatspieler, Kyle Eady, and me. We'd roll in. We'd have Wednesday and Thursday to sort of get in the tournament set up. But in the evenings, we'd go out and promote the tournament around town in the bars, so try and get local players to come.
Okay.
Then on Friday, they'd show up and we'd play Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. Then Sunday night, Monday morning, we'd tear it down, take it to the local distributor, get in our little mini motorhome, and drive to the next to the next town and then do it again and do it
Wow.
again. So, and we
Man,
saw the enthusiasm we were building.
that's living the dream right there. For
Well,
foosball,
I don't know
that is
about that.
living the dream.
It
Yeah.
was barely living.
No, I
Oh,
think
come on
think
now.
well, no, for him, I think for him back then this was just like hard grueling work. Like,
Yeah.
we look at all this through rose-tinted glasses, but it sounds
Well,
like
it does
that kind
sound
of
romantic.
no, it sounds like it sucked. It sounds like you guys were eating out of a your what do you call it? Your glove boxes and just trying to get to the next place. I recall
But
my
we,
dad telling me it's set up and stuff like that. Like the he would generally remember the last thing he would remember was his head hitting the pillow, and then immediately he was up again,
yeah,
running
yeah.
around.
Wow.
Well, when you think about all that we accomplished, and you think about who it was that did it, the number of people, it's amazing how few people we had on our staff.
Mm.
I mean, we had Lee Peppard and Faye McWilliams
Yep.
were in charge of sales, and Steve Blatspieler was in charge of sales, but he was kind of the liaison between sales and promotion. And then I was in charge of promotion, and then Kathy Brainerd was my assistant, I guess you'd say. I hate to even categorize her as an assistant because she was so good. She
Yeah.
thought just like I thought. She was amazing. But that was, and then Carl McAvoy was the accountant. That was the staff. That
Wow.
was our firm staff. And we had to, hire guys on the road and that sort of thing. But that's a pretty small group of people to do all that we did.
And I want to talk about that because there's still some more history yet to talk here, the golden era. But I do feel like there's points from that time frame where, because you guys were still, it was a family. It was a tournament soccer family, right?
Pretty much.
And I say that because I have see if I can find this here. I because I still have a lot of foosball memorabilia from that time frame that my folks gave me, and I go through them, and maybe I can't find it right here off the bat. I thought that I might have it. Oh, I do. Here it is. So I have this, and it's this piece of paper, and it says memorabilia on top, memorandum, memorable, memorial, memory, memo, and you could you can't see it on my. And it's to everybody, and the subject is party, and it says there will be an all-company party in honor of the new promo salespeople this Friday, July 20th at the Gilsons. You are cordially invited to imbibe and ingest in profusion in this convivial atmosphere with your fellow workers.
Convivial.
Yeah, and it goes on and says some lovely things, and it's funny, but I showed that to my parents, and they're like, that's totally Cal. Cal had overwritten that. Do you recall?
Where was that? Where did we have that? Was it at the offices?
No, look, this was a memorandum that went within the tournament soccer staff, and this was a party that was held at 7:00 at my parents' house.
Oh, okay.
And there was food, foos, frisbee, and family food, and feud, and Gilmer. What was Gilmer?
Don't know.
Maybe my parents might know. But I just love this. It's just and frozen daiquiris.
Frozen
you got
daiquiris.
a picture of what we were doing there. This is a group of people who were in their 20s and 30s who were, we promised to run $250,000 worth of tournaments, and we didn't have $250. So
wow.
we were working hard, and I think I would guess that the average work week for those people I named was at least 60 hours and maybe more like 80.
Yeah,
and when we were on the tour, when we were actually on the road, it was all the time. We were just working, either working or traveling all the time. So it was a real labor and a labor of love. We loved what we were doing. We loved what we were creating, but it was hard work.
Yeah. Well, it seems to be the case to this day. There's people that do what they do when it comes to putting on foosball tournaments, this kind of thing, and they do it because they love doing it. They love the sport itself, and of course that love is carried forward from your days. I just want to ask you about your relationship with the media in those days. Newspapers, magazines, radio, television. What was that like?
Well, in just about every town we went in over the 3 or 4 years, as we built it up 250 to $1 million, we would end up on Good Morning St. Louis, Good Morning Poughkeepsie, Good Morning, wherever,
Yeah.
bringing a foosball table in and doing a little interview about the tournament coming up with the little cute blonde lady and the ex-jock guy. And, and we did it almost every place we went, just to promote the tournament. And we would talk to the radio. Kathy Brainerd, matter of fact, would contact the newspapers ahead of time we were coming to let them know we'd be there and they ought to do a little coverage of us, that sort of thing. The other thing we did was we had sponsors. We got Schlitz was the biggest sponsor we got, and we tried to do that as much as possible. We tried to help the players themselves get sponsors, local team sponsors, by supporting them. So, I mean, we were working full time on getting, because that was the whole idea, was to let people know what we're doing.
Right. Right. No, I want to read something to you, and I found this tonight just before showtime. I did a little research on you, Cal. Couldn't help myself. And of course, it's all about Google. But one of the first things that came up is something that's available on eBay, and it said it's a Cal Rogers autographed copy of Promotions. And in that copy, I found this. I'll read it out loud to you. Richard Klein, photographer for Playboy magazine, covered the tournament. Following our note to Sheldon Wax, managing editor of the magazine, at our suggestion, Klein photographed two top foosball pros, Doug Furry and Jim Wiswell, teaching two Playboy bunnies how to play foosball. The photos should be used in the February or March issue of the magazine. It says Playboy has a circulation of 5,400,000. Is that something you cooked up?
Yeah. We had several things like that. We did a tournament at the Playboy. It was a Playboy hotel at the time. We did a tournament there, and in conjunction with Playboy, and got them to come and do all that stuff. We we did an NFLPA tournament in Vegas when
Cool.
got the all the players from the NFL to play doubles with partners from the tour in Vegas. We gave Hefner a table, delivered it to his.
Hugh Hefner.
I mean, it was just a matter of who you met. I mean, to me, the greatest piece of luck I ever had was getting that Sports Illustrated piece done. And the way I got that done, I was flying on a plane from Houston to Vegas, and I was on the second row in first class, and on the second row on the other side of the plane was Muhammad Ali.
Wow.
And he had people behind him, beside him, and in front of him, so nobody could get to him.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a 747, and they had those middle seats. So after the plane got to altitude, he got up and sat down there. There's nobody around him. Sat down, and I had a petition that I was going to get signed by players, asking Sports Illustrated to do an article on our first class professional sport.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody had signed it yet. I just had it with me. I was just beginning the process of getting that signed. And so I sat down next to Ali and talked to him for a while and convinced him to sign that thing. And he signed it on the first line, Muhammad Ali. And I talked to him for a long time. I told him that it was a chance for kids to be good, some kids not as big as others to be good, and to be champions. He looked me in the eye and he says, "I'm the champion." I said, I know, but this gives kids a chance to be champions too. So he gave me his training camp phone number. So we took a foosball table to his training camp.
Wow.
And then I took that autographed petition, which I later got signed by a bunch of players, to New York to meet with Walt Bingham, who was the Sports Illustrated manager at the time. He ultimately came to the whole general manager of the whole thing. And I showed him that petition. He said, "Is that really Ali's signature?" And I said, "Yeah, that's it. And that's his phone number right there." He said, "Okay, then we'll cover you." And so he sent Pat Putnam, who was their boxing writer, out to cover the tournament. And then
cool. Wow, that's extraordinary, and what good fortune for sure.
Yeah.
I want to ask more about that, or because that was actually something that. Well, no, hold on. Let me backtrack. Um, I want to backtrack to what you were saying, Tom, about what they were doing back then and going from tournament to tournament, and it being a labor of love. I don't think it was a labor of love. I think you guys wanted to make some damn money, right? I think you wanted to make it huge. Or
Well,
am I
I'll
wrong?
tell you. Yeah, I'll tell you how much money I made. I was the highest paid employee at tournament soccer, and I made $30,000 a year.
Okay.
Mm.
Were you
And
doing it? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I made 30,000 if I went to one tournament or if I went to 30 tournaments. So no incentive pay, no overtime pay. We just thought of that the money we were making is just to keep us alive until we could make a big score sometime.
Sure.
So you weren't because Tom, this is something that I think we need to talk about because right now, people that go to these tournaments and run these tournaments, it's a labor of love.
Yeah.
People go to
Oh,
these
yeah.
things. I go to these things because I love foosball. I'm not making money. I'm in debt, my credit card for the last year and a half because I've been wanting to make this work. But it's a labor of love for me. But I think there was a time in foosball where people were maybe not making a lot of money, but your intention was that you thought it was going to be big.
Well, the thought was that we were going to sell the company at some point.
Mm.
Oh, to like
And that,
to what to it like Atari or something or
yeah, exactly, to Atari was
that would have
was
been
the first one to offer to buy us.
oh
Really?
they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And did you say no
Actually,
or like what?
it was Warner Communications actually that owned Atari, bought Atari. And then the guys at Atari had become great friends of ours. All the guys, Nolan Bushnell and all the guys were our buddies, from seeing them at trade shows and whatever. And they convinced them that Warner Communications should buy us too. So we went to New York and negotiated and talked to them and whatever, and we reached a deal and came back and it went by the wayside. And I don't think I should even talk about how it went by the wayside, but
Mm.
it didn't happen. But we had it sold. That would have made us
Wow.
all millionaires.
What year was this?
78 or 9.
That was like
Wow.
the height. Because you were
Perfect
coming
timing.
off. So yeah, so we can continue with the history. Because after that, you were coming off the $1 million tour and moving into what? What was the next step after the? How do you follow up $1 million tour?
Well, the $1 million tour is when I found out um, I had a health issue. I had a parotid tumor
Ooh,
that had to be
Mm.
removed.
jeez.
And so I had that removed in January of 79. And I went back and told them that I was going to be done at the end of the tour, that I was going to go back to Dallas and be back with my family. So after 79, I didn't have anything to do with it.
Oh, so you weren't involved with it at all after that point?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean,
Yeah.
I had friends that were there
I'm
working,
sure.
and I
Yeah.
talked to them, but I didn't have any interest in it at all.
Okay, because I think we all know what happens the next year, or in the next 2 years. Well, I know, Tom. I mean, we talk about the
Yes.
what goes on, but you left at the end of '79. I know. I think that's around when my dad left and some other people did. So, but you left for personal reasons, which I totally respect and get. But on the outside looking in, did you have any observations on what was going on, or were you just like done?
I had friends working there. I cared about what they were doing.
Mm.
I'd spent a large hunk of myself in building it,
Right.
and I wanted nothing but the best for them. But um, the way that they went after that was just it was kind of foolhardy, especially with video games coming in and all.
Right.
And I think they just way overreached. Um,
I
I
want.
actually.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Peppard called me just before that big tournament that failed in '80 and borrowed 10 grand from me. He said he had to have it in order to run get the gates open for the tournament. That he'd pay me back when the tournament was going. And I went to the tournament. Said he'd pay me back when I got there. And when I got there, he said he couldn't do it.
Oh, wow. God, it's a lot of money.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a lot of other issues going on. I mean, And we could talk because these are things you reserve the right. You don't have to talk about this stuff if you don't want to. It's up to you. But I think that when we get near the end, especially in the Chicago tournament in '81 and what was going on there, but you weren't involved, so it wasn't like you actually had the details. But they were still your friends. But I mean, you've mentioned that the video games were a part of the issue.
Yeah.
How much of that was it?
I think it was. I think it signaled the end of any potential. If video games had come a year earlier, or 2 years earlier, or 3 years earlier, it would have ended it. I mean, you take a place that has 500 square feet to make money with games. You can put three, maybe four foosball tables in that 500 square feet, or you can put 12 video games.
Right.
And that's what happened. Video games took over all the space.
Okay, yeah, and so that's you all had the promo teams and you were selling tables and all that, and then it just didn't. You got pushed out of the venues.
Yeah, I don't think it made sense anymore after that. I mean, the whole concept was we didn't make money running tournaments. We weren't a tournament running business. Tournaments were our promotion.
You were a tournament,
and if we didn't sell tables, we couldn't run tournaments anymore.
You're a table selling business.
Yep, foosball table selling business.
So this is the other question. This is something that I think I was talking to my dad about this. How into at that point, leading up in the late '70s, was tournament soccer into the home model? Was there a difference between a home model and a,
Yeah, the home model was a little flimsier. It didn't have all the guys. Just the balls just fit out. And it was the reason why Atari backed out of the deal. Was the home model. Lee didn't want to give up the home model. He wanted to keep that for us. And Atari wanted it with the coin. They wanted the coin operated, but they also wanted the home version as well. And so that's why they backed out, because Lee wanted to keep the home model.
Really?
Yeah.
Why didn't they want it? Why didn't Atari?
They wanted it. Lee didn't want to give it to him.
Oh. Why didn't Lee want to give it to him?
You'll have to speak to somebody else.
Understood.
That's fair.
Well, in retrospect, Cal, I mean, this is quite a chunk of life. I mean, from early '70s to late '70s. Looking back, what's the highest point of the high? What was your favorite moment, if you can recall?
Well, I don't know if there was a certain moment, but at that $250,000 tournament in St. Louis, I had a little 3-wheel cart. You've seen those little 3-wheel carts that people ride? This place was so big, I was riding around in that, around the venue to try and get before we opened up to try to get everything done.
Wow.
And then we had a big stage, and then and behind the stage was extra room. I walked out and gave the welcome speech to everybody to that tournament. And then when I went back to the back and sat down and just looked at it, there was nothing back there. I looked at nothing. It really hit me. That moment was quite a moment to me.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It really is.
Do you recall what tournament had the most tables, or what the most tables you ever had at a tournament was?
Yeah, St. Louis, 220.
Jeez.
220 tables?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, God.
Okay.
It staggers the mind.
Oh, we have a question here. California Fooser's asking, how much was a table? How much did it cost to buy a tournament soccer table in 1978?
78?
Yeah.
I mean, for a venue or?
Yeah, let's say venue. Yeah, because everybody buys venue tables now. So
probably 600.
600. 600?
Yeah.
That was a lot.
Now,
well, the cost of promotion built in there.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. But I mean, so 600 for that table, because I didn't grow up. I grew up playing on a brown top, Cal, but it was a home model. And by the time I was playing on it, the men were held together by duct tape. This was the late '80s. There was you couldn't there was caulk in a couple different areas on the playing field, because you couldn't buy replacement parts at that point. And but it was light. There was no insides. Were the
Mhm.
tournament soccer tournament tables back then? Were they heavier?
They were the exact same model that went on in every bar in the country.
Okay,
Mm.
coin ops.
Yep.
Um, I had a question. Oh, somebody asked me a question. The solid rods. That seems counterintuitive to what you would want when you're talking about shipping costs. Why were the rods solid?
Well, they were solid from the beginning.
Oh,
Uh, there was a problem at one point. Dynamo had the problem. They had hollow bars, and people would bend them. They'd lean on them and
yeah,
they'd bend them.
yeah.
Right.
And once they're out of, not straight anymore, you can't really play with them. So I think it was a matter of just wanted something that could take it. And then shipping cost was not something that really mattered all that much.
Okay.
And, the solid bars were, a lot of people said the game could be faster if it was a hollow bar and all this stuff. But I think our guys moved pretty quick with it.
Yeah,
Solid
no.
bar.
I see my dad shoot a push kick on a solid
Yeah,
rod table.
he shot a pretty strong push kick.
No, it was pretty silly. So wait a minute. So did you play much, or by that point were you just fully just on the business end of it?
I played in the initial stages of Tornado when I was promoting a Tornado table, and then when I did that American table tour to the southeast and such. I played there. I played goalie for a fella, and then when I got to the $50,000 tournament, I was so busy working, trying to keep the Texas player fired up and paying attention and going forward, and not thinking they got screwed on this and get on that. There were tons of meetings about things like that that I didn't play there. And then once we got on a $250,000 tour, I didn't have time.
Yeah,
So I
Right.
haven't played in 30 years.
30 years.
Wow.
Yeah, at least.
So you stepped so 79, 80, you stepped away, and then you were done with foosball entirely after that. And
I
then
was. Yeah.
and what'd you do after that?
I started a distributorship for coin operated video games in Dallas for 3 or 4 years, and I used my contacts with all the distributors to get the games.
Made sense.
With C.A. Robinson in California and Valley in Chicago and such. So I did that for 3 or 4 years, and then I was done with that.
Yeah, this whole thing that we think of as a professional sport now, we've certainly overcome, I think, some of the stigma, but it's still kind of like a thing that people say, foosball, isn't that something you play in a bar? Was that stigma common back in the 70s?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. But
Mm.
the pool's the same way. Billiards is the same.
Oh
same
yeah,
way. So, but
darts.
it didn't. And we at Tournament Soccer, we eventually started building a tournament 8-ball foosball pool table in
Mm.
79. And then we started building tournament mark darts about the same time, trying to expand our brand. Um, so, and all those are bar games.
Yeah.
So, and that's actually an interesting point, Tom, because were you involved, Cal, in like trying to make foosball a Olympic event?
I wasn't.
You weren't. Okay. Did you
No.
see that happening, or did you like them trying to do
I,
that?
I don't have any. I don't have any really insights for you on that
Oh,
one.
okay.
No, tournament soccer did actually do some distribution in other places in the world, though, right? In Europe,
Oh,
correct?
all over Europe. Yeah, we had distributors in Ireland, England, Germany, Benelux, Spain,
Wow.
Italy, France. Yeah, we were all over the world, and we
No,
ran tournaments over there too.
and this is before the quote unquote ITSF and their concept of the World Cup.
Oh, that happened
I
in
guess-
2006.
Right.
That was
Long
that was
before that.
decades later.
Yeah,
But if
this
it
is,
had happened, then you guys would have been one of the primary tables, no doubt.
I'm sure,
Yes.
we basically took over Europe.
Mhm.
Like I said, I went to that meeting with the guy who told me that in Germany, he spoke German to me, but my translator said that that I had destroyed Deutsche Meister.
Really?
Never going to forgive me.
What?
He took it personally.
Why?
Because our table had taken over as all the sales
Oh, okay. Well, that's
in
That's
Germany.
great.
yeah. So I'm curious, like, we've talked about the history and all that, but like you're on the promotional side and the running the tournament side. Like, do you remember any of the players from that time frame?
A lot of them.
Yeah, because the one of the ones that still continues to play now is, speaking of team names, I always thinking about Lost in Space and Todd Lafredo and Gil Jackson, and you must have been seeing them when they went on their run. And he was a scrawny little 17-year-old. He's actually a scrawny little 63-year-old now, but and it's
Yeah.
funny. But let me blow your mind, Cal. Last year, I was at the World Championships of Foosball, the biggest event in the United States, and I did color commentary. And you know who got second place? Todd Lafredo in open doubles.
Wow.
It's just so amazing. And it wasn't like he was a slouch. Like, he was just like, he beat a lot of really good teams to get there, and they were on the winner's side. So I don't know.
Scotty Weidman.
Him and
Scotty Weidman, who's no slouch, who's an older guy too.
But I mean, what was your recollections of those guys back then?
Oh, they were killers.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them were killers. I think they did real well in that $250,000 tournament.
The one before, right?
Our single $250,000 tournament in St. Louis. I think they did well in that.
Well, wait, that 77 one.
The big one. Yeah.
No, I think they won that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they won that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Todd said after the tournament he had $12,000 in his pocket, went into a mall, walked around for 3 hours, and didn't buy anything. Like, what?
God, $12,000 back then is just such an amazing.
It's a fortune.
Yeah, it's a fortune. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
In 1963, my parents, when they bought their house, now we're talking a big house, it was $12,500 for the house.
Oh,
so
wow.
that's not too far removed from 1977.
Win a tournament, buy a house.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Cal, you have all this history with tournament soccer and foosball. Like, do you think about it much, or is that just like a different part of your life?
Well, it was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Almost 40 years ago or more than 40 years ago when I moved on. I used to have a ton of memorabilia just kind of stuck here and there around the house. And I this last year sold it to Mike Bade.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Sent it to him. Had championship belt buckles and everything you can imagine. And so I don't even have a thing around here.
Wow.
Yeah, I have some memorabilia. I mean, it was, I obviously wasn't there, but it's memories of what my folks were there and doing. And I have I don't know. It's weird when you think about it, right? Like, there's this part of your life that you are involved in heavily for some time and put all your focus in, but then it's time to move on.
I've got the Hall of Fame plaque on my wall.
Nice.
Okay.
Did you go to it?
I got my Hall of Fame jacket in the closet.
Did you?
Nope, I didn't.
You didn't go to the ceremony? Oh, okay.
But that's about all I've got as far as foosball.
Wow.
Well, we have to first of all say that we're grateful for what you did back in the 1970s. The innovation, you and your crew, the things you came up with and the things you did. I mean, who knows what foosball would be like if you hadn't done what you had done. So we're grateful to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here. Is what would be happening.
That is very true.
I'm just glad to hear that you had a tournament with 500 players. I mean, that's fabulous.
Yeah, it's pretty good, right? And I think it's only going to continue to grow. And as good as the scene is here in Europe, it's popping. Like, it's pretty amazing what they have going on over there.
Yeah, in fact, at the Hall of Fame Classic this last weekend, 30 players from Canada alone. Another contingent from the UK, another contingent from Germany, Cameroon,
South Africa. Yeah, no, it's
South Africa.
It's good. So this is what was happening before the pandemic, right? There was still a good international thing. I'm sorry, Cal. My mom keeps asking me this, so I have to ask you. Do you remember the Okay, Mom. It's just she sent me so many. She's like, "Do you remember the Halloween October Bend, Oregon tournament?"
What year?
Yeah, what year, Mom? Halloween, the October Bend, Oregon. So it's in Bend, Oregon. It's in Halloween. It's a tournament. She's gonna tell us. We have to have some closure. We're gonna be wrapping up here soon. We do need to have some closure here, but we're gonna wrap up here soon. I think, Cal, if you could stick around for a moment, we're gonna have a little outro, and then we could just chat with you for a moment afterwards. But I don't know if anybody in the audience, what is the audience we had here? We've had quite a few people.
Very nice turnout tonight, by the way. Very
Yeah,
nice. And
yeah,
thank you, thank you to our audience for that.
yeah. And if you have any questions, but I think everybody just like wants to just shut up and just listen.
Yeah.
Generally
You know,
is the case.
it's one of the things we found out, Cal, is that people like yourself, your stature, especially from that era, that golden era, it's like mythology in our lives now, and it's so in so many ways. Of course, we paint it in the best possible way because it's romantic, and we weren't there. And of course, now to hear your perspective, to realize, yes, it was a lot of hard work, and it was very difficult to do what we did. But still, it doesn't change our mythology. We still worship what that era meant to foosball.
Well, aside from the mythology reference, which I take as an affront to my age, uh, thank you.
Point taken.
Good job, Tom. Insult the guests. Why don't
Sorry.
you?
And your point was?
Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
he's saying.
You're welcome.
Yeah, he's saying thank you and don't ever say that again, Tom. Jeez, I can read between those lines, and
Oh, I'm a little slow on the uptake, but no, it is clear that you have established this thing that people will be talking about for many, many years to come when it comes to foosball fans of all kinds, for sure. What a great legacy! Thank you so much. So, did your mom respond?
yeah, she's in rare form tonight, and she said, "I said, when was this?" And she said because she's Hawaiian. You know that, right, Cal? She's Hawaiian, and
Yes.
Hawaiians do not speak in normal language. They don't talk in numbers. They talk in whatevers. And I said, when was this? And she said, the house we went out and trick or treat at, and the guy jumped out in the suit. So maybe that might shake a memory loose for you there.
Jumped out. What suit
I,
was he
I actually
wearing?
don't remember that. I don't remember getting to go to many parties actually during those 6 or 7 years. But
Well, it was a tournament in Bend, Oregon. And, we went down to Sleepy Hollow Street, and the guy jumped out when we knocked on his door, and I said, "When was this?" And she said, "What the hell is going on here?" My mom is trying to take me back into the 70s. I can see it. Well, I don't know. We're gonna figure that one out, but I think Tom, we should probably close out and thank Cal,
Yeah.
and I think there's more stories. I think Cal, I didn't talk specifically about the players at the time frame because I think we just wanted to create a timeline of what actually was happening on the business end. But
Yeah.
if you recall any of those players, and you mentioned somebody earlier on, John Gilliland.
yeah, John Gillen.
Would that be fun? And you mentioned this also when we were chatting up to leading up to this, but do you think it'd be kind of fun to have you and him just chatting about the old times? Like
I suggested that before we're
you did.
setting. I think John Gilliland is one hell of a guy, and he did a lot
Yeah.
for the sport.
All right.
I mean,
Cool.
he and I started the World Table Soccer Association in Foos News in a little back room of a newspaper that was closed at night, and we put it together there. And he fought the fight long time. He was great for football.
Right. No, and that's the thing. Like you suggested it, and I couldn't get a hold of him, but I think that I would love to kind of get a part two of this and hear all the other little stories um, that existed back then because it was really awesome chatting with you tonight, Cal. I really
I
appreciate it.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is an amazing honor. We've noticed too. We've had people like Johnny Horton, and of course Doug Furry. after all these years, came on to talk to us recently. And very much like yourself, hasn't really had a whole lot to do with the sport, but was actually surprised to hear that he's still well thought of and really considered a legend uh, in the annals of foosball, much
Rightfully
like
so.
yourself. Yeah,
Rightfully so.
yeah. So what a gracious time though. Thank you so much for doing this with us. And just want to let you know if you're willing to speak to us again sometime soon. If you haven't had enough of us already, we'd love to have you back.
Sure. Just let me know.
You bet. Absolutely. Adam?
That was it. I love it. Thank you,
All
Cal.
all
Thank you,
right.
everybody that was listening, and we shall chat again.
And FoosTalk Live, of course, this is episode number 156. 157 is next week as we will bring you some live reports from the floor of the Masters Championship in Florida, Clearwater, Florida, with Adam Gilson on the road. So we'll be hearing more about that as the week goes on. But Foos Week is happening Tuesday evening with Hannah Smith and Adam Gilson and myself. Looking forward to that. For now, stick around. We have our Foos Talk Live Foosball Beat.
Foosball tournaments are everywhere. Foos Talk Live proudly presents a weekly update of events near you with the Foos Talk Live Tournament Beat. Here's what's up. The Masters Open Championship is April 27th through the 30th at Holiday Inn, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Florida. Don't miss the $10,000 Illinois State 10th Annual Foosball Championship May 5th through the 7th. Poplar Creek Bowl, Higgins Road, Hoffman Estates, Illinois. Here comes the next OFA Tornado Foosball Tournament, May 5th through the 7th at Tailgaters in Ottawa, Canada. Tavern Players Magazine presents the Spring Foosball Tournament, May 6th. Hobbs Brewing Company, Ossipee, New Hampshire. Power Kick presents the 2023 North Carolina Bonzini Open, May 19th through the 21st at Snooker's Billiards, Raleigh, North Carolina, all to benefit the boys and girls clubs. Get ready for the Texas State Foosball Championship, May 26th through 29th at the DFW Airport Marriott in Dallas, Texas. The Canadian Pro Tour by Canada Foosball presents the Edmonton Foosball Championships, June 16th through the 18th. Edmonton Foosball Club, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. The Toronto Foosball Club presents the Tornado Foosball Tournament, July 14th through the 16th. Toronto Foosball Club, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. It's the 2023 Beachtown Beatdown, July 21st through the 23rd. Lake Worth Beach, Florida. More details coming soon. It's the Bardo Hearns Celebration Foosball Tournament, August 17th through the 20th at the Kalahari Resort, Round Rock, Texas. Make your plans now for the 2023 Tornado Championships, August 30th through September 4th, Clarion Hotel, Lexington, Kentucky. Each week, we do our best to give you the most up-to-date listing of foosball tournaments near you. If you have an event you would like to add, send us all the details at info@foosballradio.com. Tune in every week for the Foos Talk Live Tournament Beat. Foos Talk Live is a product of Foosball Radio. With gratitude, we recognize our Foosball Radio Patreons. Our Foos Talk Live sponsor, original-leonhardt-usa.com. And thanks to InsideFoos.com for use of their audio during the show. Tune in again next week for another episode of Foos Talk Live. In the meantime,
We'll see you foozin'.